Good afternoon, Professor. Today, my group and I will be sharing with you about the opposition minister parties in Singapore. Going through the table of contents, I will firstly share about the Singapore government system, then the current parliament, and then the importance of the various opposition parties, mainly Workers' Party. My other group mates Jia Hao, Run Hao, and Melvin will then share on the individual opposition leaders respectively. So to start off, the Singapore political system framework was actually adopted by the British Empire, also known as the Westminster system. It is based on a constitution that gives every Singaporean adult aged 21 and above the rights to vote for their prime minister, a parliament, an independent judiciary, and multi-party elections. Singapore actually has an international reputation as a country where there is a strong rule of law. Singaporeans are also known as the law-abiding bunch, where there is even a Singlish phrase, law by law, to describe the tendency here to meticulously follow the rules. But where do these laws come from and how are they actually made? Well, the government system is actually filtered into three separate branches. Firstly, the legislative, which makes the law of the land. They control the state finances and check the actions done by the executive. It comprises the president and the parliament. Secondly, the executive, which is responsible for the execution and enforcement of the laws. It comprises the Prime Minister and the Cabinet. The Prime Minister leads the Cabinet in the administration of the government, and the Cabinet is then responsible for the day-to-day administration of the state affairs. Lastly, the judiciary. The judiciary role is to interpret and apply the laws through the courts passed by the legislative. The judiciary operates independently from both the legislative and the executive. There are two tiers to the court system in Singapore, the Supreme Court and the State Courts. The current parliament began on the 15th January 2016 and the membership was set by the Singapore general election on the 11th September 2015. Members of the parliament are elected at general elections that takes place every 5 years or so. There are currently 91 seats for elected MPs, of which 82 are held by the ruling People's Action Party and 9 are by the opposition Workers' Party. The Singapore's parliamentary framework has evolved over the years to include other categories of MPs, such as the NMPs and NCMPs. NMPs represents different segments of constituencies such as arts and business communities. They do not belong to any political party and they contribute non-partisan views. For NCMPs, it consists of opposition candidates who lost at the poll but scored the highest percentage of votes among the ruling party candidates who did not get elected. They do not officially represent any constituency. This NCMP category is actually a scheme to guarantee that the 9 seats held by opposition candidates to be filled. If there are fewer NMPs nominated, the rest of the seats will be filled by the NCMPs. Many focus on the ruling political party and tend to not fully understand the importance behind an opposition party. Well, the opposition actually plays an important check and balance role in the parliament. It is an integral part of the success in Singapore's parliamentary democracy. What they have to do will be to first check and restrict the government from becoming authoritarian and abusing its powers. Second, to criticize the policies of the government constructively. And thirdly, to check the expenditure of the government constantly. Lastly, they have to safeguard the liberty of the people. An example of an opposition party is actually Workers' Party. The Workers' Party is a leftist political party in Singapore since 2011 and has been the only opposition party to have elected MPs in the parliament. The Workers' Party was founded on the 3rd of November 1957 by Singapore's former Chief Minister David Marshall. The Workers' Party believed in a socialist Singapore that must go beyond elitism and materialism. They seek for a first world parliament, where the government is held accountable for issues concerning Singaporeans, allowing us to be able to exercise our rights in political participation. They aim to support the working and other lower classes. They also have advocated a more calibrated approach to immigration to Singapore, such as having a cap to the overall number of foreign workers where Singapore achieves a 1% annual growth in the local workforce. Now passing the time over to Jia Hao.
Thanks, Nicole. I'm Jia Hao and I'll be presenting on Joshua Benjamin Jeyaretnam, one of the greatest opposition politicians in Singapore. Let's go through some of his facts. He was not born in Singapore but in northern province of the Sri Lanka while his parents were on leave from Malaya. He grew up in Johor and started his formal education in Muar. After that, he continued his education in English College, Johor Bahru, but was disrupted by the Japanese occupation of Malaya. After World War II, he moved to Singapore and continued his education at St. Andrews School before studying law at University College of London. In 1981, he became the first opposition politician since Singapore independence in 1965. On his political career, his first appearance on the parliamentary election is in 1972, but he lost to Lee Chiu Meng when contested the Farrer Park constituency. In 1976, he then contested Kampong Chai Chee and lost to Andrew Fung. He made a breakthrough and finally won the Anson seat in 1981, making him the first opposition member of parliament since independence. In the 1984 general election, Jeyaretnam defended his seat in Anson, but 2 months later, Jeyaretnam and the Worker Party chairman Wong Hong Toi were charged for allegedly misreporting his party account. This disqualified him from serving in parliament and prevent him from standing in parliamentary election for a period of 5 years. In the 1997 general election of Singapore, as only 2 opposition MP had been elected, 1 NCMP seat was offered to a member for the Worker Party teams. The Worker Party selected Jeyaretnam for the NCMP position. Jeyaretnam fire ban rhetoric resulted in defamation lawsuit from the PAP leadership. He was made bankruptcy in 2001 and resigned as Secretary General of the party. Jeyaretnam struggled to deliver justice to the poor, the discriminated, and the working people. He challenged the government on a range of issues including high ministerial salaries, the role of judiciary, fair trial, police method of investigation, defamation law, freedom of the press, and workers' rights. The Singaporean government has a history of using civil defamation suits to stifle politician opposition. Such defamation suits place unreasonable restrictions on the rights of Singaporeans to peacefully express their opinion and to participate freely in public life. Jeyaretnam wants the best for his people, and he was brave and critical of the government in parliament. He never succumbed to the pressure of being an opposition politician, and many call him the lion of Singapore politics. For many people who were disaffected by PAP policy, that means a lot. J.B. Jeyaretnam struggled to establish his belief for Singapore based on justice and democracy. He was a champion of human rights.
I'm Ren Hao, and I'm gonna talk about another very important person of opposition MP, who is Chiam See Tong. He's a Singaporean politician and lawyer who served as the longest-serving opposition member of parliament. He has gone through a legendary 4-decade-long journey in politics. He first entered politics as a nobody in 1976. He contested as an independent candidate in Chuan Hill constituency, but failed. Then in 1984, he was first elected to parliament and represented the constituency of Potong Pasir from 1984 to 2011. In 2019, he finally retired from politics as he stepped down from his post as Secretary General of the Singapore People's Party. Looking through his political career, he devoted himself mainly to the following topics: forming an economic union with Malaysia, education issues, gambling, the group representation constituency system, the elected presidency, the non-constituency MP scheme. And on top of that, there are impacts and benefits that he brought to Singapore. Mr. Chiam was an advocate of a loyal opposition. He once said, "The opposition, being loyal to the country, must side our country." So when the Republic received a barrage of criticism from Philippines over the execution of a Filipino domestic worker for murder in 1995, he spoke up for Singapore, saying that, "I would not allow the foreign press to use opposition as a club to hit at our government." So Though as an opposition member, he helped Singapore to stay united. Mr. Cham was also credited for being the architect of the by-election effect strategy, which helped Singapore Democratic Party capture street seats and the Worker Party win one in the 1991 general election. This is considered the best showing by the opposition for 2 decades before the 2011 general election. After that, he became the unofficial leader of the opposition in parliament. Then I pass my time to Melvin. Thank you.
I am Melvin, and I will be presenting on Low Tia Kiang. Here's the background of him. He was born on 5th September 1956. Upon graduation, he was a teacher where he realized the flawed education system in Singapore and decides to resign and become a politician himself. He joined the Workers' Party in 1982, where he subsequently became the organizing secretary and eventually became the Secretary General in 2001 till 2018, holding the position for 17 years. In 1988 general election, he contested for Tiong Bahru GRC and lost to PAP with 42.2%. In 1991 general election, Low won the Hougang XMC and entered the parliament. He held the position of the Hougang XMC for 4 terms till 2011, where he took a risk and contested for Aljunied GRC, winning the seat against Cynthia Phua from PAP with 54.7%, bringing in 5 more Workers' Party Member of Parliament into the parliament. How did he gain the seats in both Hougang SMC and Aljunied GRC? Back then, he was a well-known guy for giving speeches in Teochew. This gave him lots of support from the Teochew-speaking residents in Hougang. That is where he began to form close bonds with the community. He was seen cycling and performing lion dance in the neighborhood. This has led residents wanting things to remain the same with him, having the Hougang spirit. He also lay issues out to the people and have them decide rather than pushing for votes. Here is a short clip of his speech.
More investments should be made by the government in Singaporean workers to improve productivity and promote family-friendly work policies. Dear Singaporeans, we believe a sustainable Singapore is one where citizens take ownership and are actively involved in the nation-building process. We believe in diverse representation in the parliament, and we believe policy will be more encompassing and compassionate with diverse representations. We believe in an empowering all citizens of Singapore to play a part in achieving happiness, prosperity, and progress for our nation.
Continuing, he was seen as a rational, responsible, and respectable person in the eyes of the opposition. He sees the growth of citizens together with the economy more important as to mindless growth of economy alone. He fights for the sustainability of the people in the rapidly growing economy with prices of everything increasing. Socially, he believes that he is part of the community and not someone who runs them. Benefits he brought with him would be the revision of the education system due to the anxiety of streaming costs towards weaker students, which leads to expensive private tutors to be hired. He also questioned the current measure put in place for low birth rates, where it is ineffective and it does not eliminate the factor causing it, which is the high cost of living, poor work-life balance, and stress. He also listed that the flow rate of foreign workers should only be taken in with a dependency ratio of each sector and distinguishing permanent residents and locals, giving locals the sense of security that majority of the jobs do go to them. He too restructured the team of MPs by bringing in professionals from different walks of life, including a researcher, James Gomez, a training consultant, Paul Lee Guan, and a law lecturer, Sylvia Lim. He believes that he is the bridge between citizens and politics.
He raised the issue of molestation in public transport, proposing for a female-only cabin. Alternatively, heightened patrols were made by Public Transport Security Command to deter it from happening, with the additional help of propaganda videos. He also raised the issue of maintenance and leave, whereby extra budget was to be put in place and standardizing parts for easy troubleshooting.
So to conclude, what Singapore needs in a political system is governance, and what we need in governance is fundamentally about the improvement of lives of people like you and I. Singapore government needs to make room for us to fulfill our potential and aspiration by building a political system that will have constructive solutions from the diverse views of political leaders of right ethos. This keeps the country going, growing, and glowing. Thank you.